Nothing you believe is yours actually belongs to you. Not the person sleeping beside you, not the body you were born with, not the life you spent years building as if it were a fortress that time could never touch. The reason you suffer so deeply is not that you're going to lose these things. You are going to lose them. That much is certain. The reason you suffer is that you convinced yourself they were yours in the first place. Pain does not come from loss itself, it comes from the sense of ownership you had before the loss. And once you begin to see that you never truly owned anything, suffering starts to lose its grip. This is not meant to comfort you. It is the coldest and most accurate explanation of why you carry the burdens you do. More than 2,500 years ago, a man who walked away from a palace understood this with a clarity that is still unsettling today, because it dismantles the illusion on which you built your entire identity. Today, you're going to understand where your suffering really comes from. Why is the idea of ownership the oldest trap of the human mind? And why is letting go, something you've been taught to fear as defeat, the only thing that can truly set you free? No comforting words, no reassuring promises, just the raw truth that the Buddha left behind, a truth that almost no one has the courage to face. Let's begin by tearing down the first illusion. Do you think pain comes from loss? It doesn't. Pain comes from the sense of ownership you had before the loss. And that sense of ownership was a mental construction, not a fact. Think about the last time you truly suffered, not because of a cut on your skin, but because of something much deeper. Someone left, a relationship ended, you lost a job. A future that once felt certain fell apart in your hands. What destroyed you wasn't the event itself. It was the voice inside your head repeating, "This was mine, this was supposed to last, this wasn't supposed to happen to me." That voice is attachment. And the Buddha identified it as the root of nearly all human suffering. More than 2,500 years ago, a prince named Siddhartha Gautama asked a question that almost no one dares to ask. He had wealth, comfort, and a family, yet he still felt that something was deeply wrong beneath all that abundance. He left everything behind and sat beneath a tree, determined not to rise until he understood why human beings suffer so much. What he found was not a comforting answer. It was a mechanism. Suffering does not come from pain itself. It comes from attachment. It is not what happens to us that truly wounds us. It is our refusal to accept that everything changes. He called it dukkha, the dissatisfaction and frustration that arise when you try to hold tightly to something that, by its very nature, is always slipping through your fingers. Because this is the reality the world seems determined to make you forget. The universe is always in motion. Everything is born, grows, and comes to an end. There are no exceptions. There are no special deals. There is nothing you can love enough to make time spare it. Your health is not yours. Your youth is not yours. The people you love are not yours. Even your mental stability, the one you believe is unshakable, can break in a single day. Everything is borrowed, and eventually the bill for that loan always comes due. The problem is that you live as if you don't know it. You act as though you were eternal, as though the people you love will never leave, as though the happiest moments come with a guarantee that they will happen again. And when reality shatters that illusion, you feel betrayed, as if the world owed you something it never promised in the first place. Time is not moving slowly, it is taking everything away right now. As you breathe, your skin renews itself. Cells die and are born. People change cities, beliefs, and feelings. Places that seem permanent today will no longer exist in the same way tomorrow. And you too are constantly changing, even if you don't notice it. The idea of permanence is comforting, but that is all it is, an idea. The Buddha taught that everything that exists bears 3 marks, and all 3 are deeply unsettling. The first is impermanence. Nothing remains the same, not even for a single moment. That hand you see as solid and stable is, beneath the surface, nothing but constant activity. Your body is more like a river than a statue. Within just a few years, almost every part of what you call yourself will have been replaced. So answer this honestly. Who is this fixed self that you spend your entire life trying to protect? The second mark is dissatisfaction. Everything that begins already carries its own ending within it. The flower that blooms has already begun its journey toward withering. Today's smile is already becoming tomorrow's memory. The love that begins with overwhelming intensity already carries, silently, the possibility of changing. This is not cruelty. It is simply the natural mechanism of life. And the sooner you see it, the less it will shock you when it happens. The third mark is the most unsettling of all. There is no permanent self. You believe you are the same person you were 10 years ago, but that is an illusion, sustained by habit. Your thoughts have changed, your fears have changed, your desires have changed. The child you once were is gone. The teenager you used to be is gone as well. Even the version of you that existed yesterday is no longer exactly the same. So when you say, "This is mine," who exactly is claiming ownership? A self that does not even remain the same. This is where most people turn away because it sounds cold. It sounds like giving up on feeling, but it's exactly the opposite. Letting go is not about feeling less. It is about feeling deeply without trying to imprison what you love. It is loving while knowing that no one can be locked inside a box labeled forever. It is holding on without squeezing too tightly. It is living with intensity, but with open hands. There is an ancient story that illustrates this with remarkable clarity. When the wife of an Eastern sage passed away, his friends went to see him, expecting to find him devastated. Instead, they found him calm, quietly playing music. Outraged, they asked him, "Didn't you love her?" He answered calmly, "Before she was born, she did not exist. Then she came into being, lived, shared part of her life with me, and now she has returned to the state that came before." Why should I rebel against the natural order of things? It wasn't that he felt no sadness. It was that he refused to turn his sadness into a war against reality, a war that no one has ever won. And if everything is temporary, one unavoidable question arises. What is the point of living? Why love if everything will eventually disappear? Here lies the reversal that almost no one understands. Value does not disappear because life is finite. It exists because life is finite. What lasts forever is rarely appreciated. What you know you will lose is what you experience with an intensity that eternity could never allow. If you knew tomorrow would be the last day with someone you love, would you waste it on pointless pride and meaningless arguments? Or would you be fully present, truly there? The awareness that everything ends makes every moment infinitely more precious. Modern science points to something remarkably similar. Brain scans show that emotional pain activates many of the same regions involved in physical pain. But there is one crucial difference. Emotional pain depends on interpretation. Two people experience the same loss. One falls apart, the other rebuilds and moves forward. What makes the difference? The meaning each person gives to what happened. The Buddha offered perhaps the clearest illustration of all. You are struck by an arrow. It hurts. That is unavoidable. That is the first arrow, the event itself. But then your mind picks up a bow and shoots a second arrow into itself. Why me? This isn't fair. Life owes me something better. And that second arrow, the one you fire yourself, cuts far deeper and lasts far longer than the first. Most people spend their entire lives shooting themselves with that second arrow. They relive what hurt them. They feed their resentment. They replay the wound in their minds 1,000 times. Then they wonder why life feels so heavy. Life is not heavy. Life is neutral. The weight comes from your resistance to what has already happened and can no longer be changed. The Buddha's answer was direct presence. Being here, now, without fighting reality, without adding judgments, without creating unnecessary stories about what happened or what might happen. It sounds simple until you try it. Close your eyes and watch your breathing for 10 seconds. Your mind will almost immediately wander to yesterday or tomorrow. It runs away from the present because it has been trained to live anywhere except here. And that is the trap. Suffering almost always lives in the past or the future. It is rarely found in this exact moment. Right now, as you listen, there's probably no catastrophe unfolding. There may be discomfort, fatigue, hunger, but intense psychological suffering usually begins when your mind starts traveling elsewhere. That is why meditation is not about relaxation. It is training yourself to stop being dragged around by every thought that passes through your mind. You begin to watch your thoughts like clouds drifting across the sky. They appear, they change shape, they disappear, and something within you remains, simply watching. That observer is the only thing that truly matters, because you are not the anxious thought, you are not the feeling of sadness. You are the awareness that notices the anxiety and notices the sadness. The moment you truly understand that, you stop being their slave. Someone else's criticism becomes nothing more than a sound your mind interprets, not an attack on who you are. Loss becomes simply another change. Other people's judgments become passing events that do not define you. Different traditions have given this presence different names, yet they all point toward the same experience, the awareness that observes. In Hinduism, it is called Atman. In Buddhism, it is known as Buddha nature. In Taoism, it is the Tao that cannot be named. In Christian mysticism, it is the divine spark. Different languages, one timeless truth. There is something within you that witnesses everything. A silent presence that witnessed the child you once were, witnessed the teenager you became, sees the adult you are today, and has remained unchanged while everything else has transformed. It was not born when you were born, and it does not die when something comes to an end. When you begin to identify with that presence instead of your possessions, attachment loses all its power because what is permanent has no need to cling to what is temporary. But let this be clear. This is not about becoming cold or withdrawing from the world. It is not about abandoning people or isolating yourself. It is about no longer loving from a place of lack and instead loving from a place of freedom. It is acting from understanding rather than from need. There is a profound difference between loving because you need someone and loving because you want to share your life with them. The love that says, "I need you to be whole," is not love. It is dependence disguised as romance. When that person changes or leaves, you feel as though you've lost a part of yourself because you made someone else the foundation of your identity. Real love does not demand. It does not imprison. It does not bargain for your existence in exchange for affection. It loves because loving is natural, not because it expects something in return. And the paradox is striking. The less you try to possess, the deeper everything becomes. When you let go, your experience grows richer because you stop living in constant fear of losing. Now, be honest with yourself. What is the one thing you feel you could never afford to lose? A person, a position, a sense of security, an image of yourself that took years to build, an old dream? Imagine, for just a moment, that it disappears. What would remain? The picture your mind paints is almost always far worse than reality. Fear exaggerates. It invents apocalyptic endings. Loss hurts, yes. But it is rarely the end of the world your imagination predicts. You adapt far more than you think. In fact, you always have. The ancient philosophers practiced an exercise for this. Before going to sleep, they imagined losing something precious. They visualized it in detail. They felt the emotional impact. Then they noticed that they were still there, breathing, alive. That practice accomplished two things. It made them stronger from within, and it awakened gratitude for what was still present, not because it belonged to them forever, but precisely because it was here, for now. When you watch a sunset, you do not try to trap it inside a jar. You do not argue with the sky because the colors begin to fade. You simply experience it while it lasts. There is no despair when it ends because you knew from the very beginning that it was temporary. Imagine living that way with everything, appreciating what is present without demanding that it remain forever. That does not mean becoming someone without desires. It is natural to prefer health over illness, companionship over loneliness, stability over chaos. Preferences are part of being alive. The problem begins when a preference becomes a condition. When you say, without this, I can't be happy. The moment you hand your peace over to something you cannot control, you make yourself fragile. Imagine your hands. When they are closed into fists, they cannot receive anything new. When they are open, everything can arrive, and everything can leave, without destroying you. That is what non-attachment is. You're not a vault trying to protect everything from time. You are a space through which life flows. And when you truly accept that, fear begins to shrink. Anxiety begins to fade, because there is no longer anything you must defend at all costs. No fortress left to maintain. There is only this moment, this breath, this experience unfolding right now. And that is enough because it is the only thing that is truly real. That is the truth the Buddha realized beneath that tree. The problem was never having too little. It was clinging too tightly. It was never the lack of control. It was the illusion that you ever had control in the first place. Wholeness was never something that depended on accumulating, holding on, or proving yourself to anyone. You were already whole before any of this began. You simply lost sight of yourself while trying to possess what never, not even for a single moment, truly belonged to you. And now that you've seen it, you cannot pretend you haven't. So the question is, will you keep living with your hands tightly closed, fighting a war against time that no one has ever won? Or will you finally open your hands and let life flow through you? If you've made it this far, write this in the comments. Nothing belongs to me, and that is why I am free. Not as a performance, but as a reminder that you heard these words and chose not to let them pass by. If you're ready for the next level, the next video is already appearing on your screen. Click it if you have the courage to keep going